Wow, what an opening day for the start of the 35th America's Cup. Collision, penalties, pretty much everything we could have asked for. Let's take a quick look.
It's pretty beautiful out there today.
The gloves off, ready to go.
Conditions are great out there, so we're just looking forward to getting into it.
Race 1 of the 35th America's Cup was Oracle Team USA against Groupama Team France. The well-drilled Americans showed off their surprise weapon, pedalling away. USA won it over 2 minutes ahead of the French. The next races saw wins for Artemis of Sweden and Emirates Team New Zealand and Britain's Land Rover BAR. Race 5 was a meeting of the old rivals, the American Defenders against the Kiwis. Gate 3 and Team New Zealand were ahead. But a double luff at Gate 5 saw USA force their way past. No infringement, and the Americans went on to take the victory. Last race of the day, first crash of the regatta. Penalty against Land Rover BAR. The umpire said the British did not do enough to get out of the way. Ainsley's boat had a hole in one hull. They never recovered, and Dean Barker took Japan's first win of the regatta.
So the end of the day, a collision between SoftBank Team Japan and Land Rover BAR. Here's from the skippers what they think happened.
Well, we were in the pre-start. We were coming into the final approach. Japan, Dean Barker, SoftBank Team Japan came in and got an overlap to leeward. They were the right-of-way boat, and unfortunately, just at that instant, we had a sideways slide on our foils, and so it brought the boats together and caused some pretty serious damage. So, no one wanted or was looking for a collision there. Sometimes that happens. And again, I thought we did a great job to get around the course considering the damage that we had, and we were hanging in there most of the race despite that. So yeah, the day bodes well for the team, and we've got to go and fix the damage. Our shore team are best in the game. They'll do whatever they can to get us out there racing tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing hard.
No, they just didn't keep clear, and then the leeward hull forward up pretty high. The boat slid into us. Then it landed on top of our boat. It's done quite a bit of damage, which is really frustrating, given the work that's gone into getting the boat prepared, so frustrating.
You called it a love tap originally up there, but it's clearly more than that with damage. But is everyone involved okay, bodies-wise?
Well, I think that's a phrase that Ben sort of coined when his last crash. It's pretty, it's always disappointing to have any collision out there, and we're obviously very fortunate there's no, and it didn't stop us from racing. We had a broken steering wheel, the rate control that I used was broken, so it wasn't working as well as it should, but we managed to get around the course, so that was a positive. But yeah, looking forward to getting back out tomorrow with a boat back in good shape.
We have been informed both teams managed their repairs overnight, will be out racing this afternoon. I have with me expert match racer Torvar Mirsky. Torvar, Dean, who's difficult to get a rise out of, clearly disappointed.
This collision is an example of how close this racing is, and the teams of having to push each other in order to win the race. SoftBank were coming in a powerful, fast position from behind, but Ben Ainsley had that port entry and was the first one down to that ley line. So he was holding that more comfortable, controlling position, and Dean had to, make that speed to get himself into that pre-start. And they did really well to get into that start, but Ben just didn't flinch, and here we see their collision.
And we hear from Ben a sideways slip. Can you explain what that means? How does that actually happen? I mean, he clearly didn't do it on purpose.
Well, Ben had this port entry. He was the first down to the bottom of the box, and he's the first going back towards the start line, so he wants to slow up. So he's off the foils, controlling that ley line down there. Dean has to be aggressive to come in from behind and hopefully luff Ben out of that position. And so Ben is going in a transition from being off the foils onto the foils. And when the boat's slow, the foils are not gripping the water. They're not getting flow over it. When it's popped up out of the water, it's slipped sideways and lost that sideways control on the foil, and obviously into SoftBank right there, and here we see the big crash.
It was a lot of damage as well. We know the steering wheel broken on SoftBank Team Japan, a hole at the bottom of Ben Ainsley's boat, but has been fixed, has been repaired. A tough race that was pretty much over at the start, at least for Land Rover BAR. They had to foil all the way into the harbor to make sure the boat didn't sink out on the water. But a race that was not over at the start, that wasn't over until the finish line. A matchup we've all been anticipating since San Francisco, Oracle Team USA versus Emirates Team New Zealand. Here's skipper Jimmy Spithill's take.
Yeah, we had a great race with them. We got off the line well, led at the reach mark and made a big mistake at the bottom gate. My fault. Just technically did a very bad job in the rounding. And then we just weren't consistent enough with a couple of manoeuvres. But the important point was the boys dug deep. We were able to sort of muscle our way back into the race and, set up. Tommy did a pretty nice job, so we were able to set up that situation at the top. And, Team New Zealand kind of made a bit of a fundamental error there, and that was the race.
So as Jimmy said, he made a mistake at that bottom mark. We were watching it at the time. We called it live. It was just a sailing mistake. They didn't go wide and then tight. They went tight and then wide.
Yeah, absolutely. It's classic match racing. You're leading in there. You know that Team New Zealand are following you into that bottom mark, and Oracle just needs to defend it. Not necessarily the fastest way around the course, but he needs to make sure he's covering Team New Zealand by going, slowing up before the bottom mark, so he's got a high road out of that bottom mark to squeeze out Team New Zealand. But instead, he does a wide rounding and lets Team New Zealand inside him. And Team New Zealand were unlucky that the boundary came up and Oracle got that right tack out of them.
Yeah, essentially let off by the boundary. And then I think further up the course, another interesting scenario, Oracle Team USA tacking away shy of the next boundary, allowing the Kiwis to get that left side and get some leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. The next tack coming up to the left-hand boundary halfway up the course, Oracle in a good position, and we see the opportunity for them to slam them, as we say in sailing, take the wind from them, and instead they tack off early. And ultimately, Team New Zealand get a left shift out of that and make the cross over Oracle.
So Team New Zealand got ahead, they led for the next leg, and then final upwind, they make a mistake.
Isn't it cool to see this racing so close and it coming down to match racing? So Oracle just did a great job. They got into phase with the wind and also lined up that left top mark. And I think going into that final downwind to the finish, the left-hand top mark equals less manoeuvres. Team New Zealand needed to either lay the top right-hand corner, which they were not, or slam Oracle into the left one, and they did an in-between job. And basically Oracle got, Team New Zealand overlaid the left-hand turn, allowed Oracle to have the inside at that top mark. And in fact, I think Team New Zealand were lucky to get off the hook without a penalty there in a windward-leeward situation before Oracle bare it away.
Exactly, but no harm, no foul. Emirates Team New Zealand without a penalty. Oracle still took the race. But let's hear from Peter Burling, helmsman on board Emirates Team New Zealand.
We always knew that it was going to be a good matchup against Oracle. They've kind of been avoiding us the whole way through this practice series. So it was our first time to really, line up against them in anger. And we're really happy with where we checked in. The boat was going fast, and we feel like we've got plenty in the tank to improve on. And I suppose happy with it's not quite the right word. Obviously, we're not happy with it, but I felt like a lot of the things that are really hard to improve, we were doing well, and a lot of the things that are easy to improve, we didn't do that well. So we're just going to go debrief it now and take the learnings out of it, which I can tell you there are plenty, and make sure we're better tomorrow.
I'm sure that they have debriefed that scenario well overnight. Another scenario, I'm sure, was debriefed overnight. SoftBank Team Japan versus Artemis Racing. Another close race, another lead change. On the final upwind, what happened?
Yeah, SoftBank really going fast, beating Artemis around the track. On the final upwind, it seemed like they got a bit flustered. Artemis did a great job of catching up and putting the pressure on SoftBank. SoftBank had the right-hand side, and Artemis were coming across powerful on port tack, and SoftBank went for the classic match race tack in front. And basically they failed their tack under pressure. I think, maybe just from a sailing perspective, they've not practiced their under pressure racing tacks very much, and they put the bows in and couldn't execute that one. And maybe that's also a compliment to Artemis, just showing a little bit more pace than they expected. So what happened in the end is that SoftBank went from attack from starboard to port in front of Artemis. Artemis came in with pace underneath SoftBank, luffed them and forced SoftBank to do a second tack down speed and off to the left-hand side, the unfavoured side, where Artemis had the starboard advantage going into that top mark and never looked back basically after that.
It's sort of what you expect from typical match racing, but now they're going 40 knots. They're making these decisions. And if they fluff a tack, they could go from not losing anything in the tacks to losing massive amounts. So huge pressure on these guys. But ultimately, I think it does show Artemis not completely infallible. They were the pre-race favorites, but they weren't leading that race. And then they did lose a race to Land Rover BAR. So we caught up with skipper Nathan Atteridge to hear what he had to say on the day.
I guess everyone thinks that Ben's been off the pace for some time, but we all know that it's a great team and all the boats are very similar in pace. It's the little things that make the differences. And today he had a good start against us. You know, we were trying to get to leeward of him and we just got locked out above, so we went above, and then it was amazing how close the racing was. We were trying to get the splits to try and create these opportunities, and I just don't think the shifts were really quite going our way. But you know, we'll need to watch the race back to find out what really was going on, because it all happens so quickly, it ends up being a bit of a blur.
That must have been a long debrief for Artemis Racing. I mean, I think that was a very big surprise for their team to have lost to Land Rover BAR.
It's just huge for Ben Ainslie Racing to compete with Artemis. I think it's massively exciting for the whole America's Cup that Ben Ainslie Racing was so fast and took out Artemis, who were definite favourites. Maybe that was Ben Ainslie's like optimum wind conditions for their boat, and Artemis, I think, may have been a little bit caught out using light wind foils when maybe Ben Ainslie Racing, the rest of the teams, were using their heavy air foils, which is an interesting sort of engineering development with these boats. But yeah, just super excited to see such close racing.
And I think the nerves on Ben Ainslie Racing, I mean, I know, as we've said, other teams surprised, but the rumor has it, and I didn't see it in the broadcast, that Ben may have gotten a little bit sick afterwards and therefore wasn't doing the interview afterwards. Do you think that's nerves? I mean, the first race, they took out the favorites. He's a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. To have that kind of nerves at this point, it's amazing.
Well, I'm not surprised. It's called Ben Ainslie Racing, and there's a lot of pressure on him. He's steering the team, he's leading the team. There's a lot of people back in England who are watching and are invested in his team. So, you know, I don't blame him if that happened. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, I'll have to go back and find out. Well, thank you so much today, Torvar. And this is the overall standings after day one. The schedule for today: Artemis Racing versus Groupama Team France, Oracle Team USA versus Land Rover BAR, SoftBank Team Japan versus Emirates Team New Zealand, USA again versus Sweden, New Zealand again versus Great Britain, then Japan's second race versus Oracle Team USA's third. There is quite a bit on store for today. If you want to know how to watch in your area, go to americascup.com/where-to-watch. Make sure to ask questions below, let us know who you're supporting, and get ready for a second great day of America's Cup racing.